Father James Martin is a Jesuit priest, the culture editor of American Magazine, and author of numerous books, including My Life with the Saints, which recently, I think this year, just went over 100,000 sold. Congratulations on that. And Publishers Weekly named it one of the best books of 2006. Father Martin is a frequent contributor to in the national and international media and has appeared in such diverse venues as NPR's Fresh Air with Terry Gross, Fox TV's The O'Reilly Factor, PBS's NewsHour, Comedy Central's The Colbert Report, which you, right, there you go. Stephen Colbert's in the room.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah. Which I think you're officially the chaplain, the official chaplain. Of the, what are the responsibilities of the chaplain of the Colbert Report?
Go on whenever he asks.
Okay, that's right. As well as the New York Times, the Boston Globe, Wall Street Journal, the History Channel, BBC, and Vatican Radio. Isn't this a little prideful to be having all
Keep
these
reading.
things? Okay. All right.
That's an incomplete list.
Okay. Ignatius, God in all things, even in credits and resumes.
That's right.
Before entering the Jesuits in 1988, he graduated from the Wharton School of Business in his hometown of Philadelphia and worked with General Electric for several years. So that's Father Jim Martin. Welcome to
Thank you.
To you. And I just wanted to say, in some of the materials that came with the new book, this one line really jumped out at me, just given your resume and given all that you do. On any given day, he might celebrate Mass in the morning, help to run a magazine in the afternoon, and later appear on live national TV to discuss the top religious stories of the day. Like, do you bring home the bacon, too?
No, I changed that. I actually changed that.
You changed that to this?
No, I said never in the morning. I don't celebrate Mass in the morning.
No, exactly, right. He's busy. No, it really is like, do you have a cape and you're going to do the Justice League of America and hang out with Aquaman? It's really kind of amazing.
I can't tell you.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I'd have to kill you.
Exactly. I totally understand.
That's what this is from. Crime fighter.
Exactly. There's a little Batman fighter beating up the Joker in Gotham. All right, so this is Tips for Summer Spirituality, and I've known Jim for about 7 years, and I also know Jim's family. Because I'm also from Philadelphia, and
hello, Philadelphia.
Nobody hears. Well, there's a couple of Philadelphia.
Yeah. Go Flyers! Go Flyers!
If you're not from Philadelphia, which I am, it's a wonderful city to be from. And,
so horrible. I love.
It's my hometown. Are you guys booing me, the New Yorkers? What?
I would like to say to all Philadelphians that I, on the other hand, love Philadelphia.
Oh, right. All the book buying public in Philadelphia. Right. You'd like to say. Love it. No, but I do love Philly. My whole family's still there, but when we have some Philly moments when I talk to your family, and what I'd like to talk, my first summer moment I'd really like to talk about is when you told me when you were a kid, your father would drop you off at Mass. I think the impression is that you're a priest, so therefore you've been a holy roller.
Right.
But your father would drop you off at Mass and read the bulletin.
Sometimes.
Read the
Frequently he would come in, though.
Oh, he would?
Yeah, I mean, I always like to say...
This story is changing.
No, I always like to say... Well, of course it is. So did the Gospels over the years.
Exactly.
No, I mean, I like to say that, since my mother is watching right now, that I came from a Catholic family, you know, but like most Catholics and most, I think, people in the audience and maybe people watching, we weren't a super Catholic family, you know, we would, you know, be saying the rosary and going to daily Mass and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I think one of the reasons I enjoy writing in this vein, which is a kind of conversational vein, is that I feel like I can understand people who aren't from these sort of super super intense Catholic backgrounds, you know, where, I mean, I didn't go to a Catholic grammar school or a Catholic high school or a Catholic college, and so yeah, and I mean, I think that that's where most Catholics are these days.
Well, what's great about the book, and all your books, I mean, this is your 12th book? Or
I'm not sure, actually, 10th,
okay.
11th.
Geez.
Well, I'm not, I'm saying not. There's so many. He told me I could be playful, so
be playful. He's already changed his story about Philadelphia as a kid. Trust me.
So I actually wasn't born there.
Exactly. One of the great things about all your books is the conversational tone, and you take very esoteric ideas about Ignatian spirituality in the book, The Jesuit Guide to Almost Everything. It's called A Spirituality for Real Life. And I guess what's really funny about because I know that you entered pretty quickly. You said
yeah.
You saw some Thomas Merton PBS special, and then you sort of said, I got to be a priest.
Yeah, well, I was working, I had, more or less, actually, I had been working for GE for 6 years in New York after graduating from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, which is the business school there, and felt like a square peg in a round hole, and I got more and more miserable at my job. You know, business is a real vocation for a lot of people, but it just wasn't where I fit. And one night I came home, I was living in Stamford, Connecticut, and I turned on the television set, and there was a documentary, which is called Merton, a film biography produced by Paul Wilkes. And watching the story of Thomas Merton, a Trappist monk, was so captivating that it just drew me in, prompted me to read his autobiography, and that got me sort of thinking about religious life, about which I knew zero.
Yeah, because in the book, it's clear you know nothing about it because you're...
Right.
I mean, 20 years later, we think you know something. But
that's right.
But what's fascinating in the book is just he's like, you know, my director told me that you could just imagine, and you like every time you're like, you got to be kidding me.
Well, yeah,
people
which is
actually do this,
right?
Like prayer. So
well, prayer or having a personal relationship with God.
Right.
You know, what is that?
Talk
it's
about
ridiculous.
that because this book is.
Well, I mean, it sounds ridiculous to people. Right. You know, I mean, if you can't see God in front of you, you know, if God's not going to come call you on the phone or appear to you in some, you know, vision, then what does that mean to have a personal relationship with God? So those kinds of things, thinking about imaginative prayer, sort of imagining yourself in the scriptures, was very difficult for me because it just seemed bizarre and as if you were sort of making it up in your mind. But the thing that unlocked it for me was my first spiritual director who talked to me about Ignation Prayer, which is basically placing yourself in the scene and imagining yourself in the Gospels and sort of seeing what comes up in prayer seemed odd. And he said, well, you know, God can work through relationships. And I said, yeah. And he said, God can work through Mass and Scriptures. And I said, yeah. And why can't God work through your imagination? So it's an understanding that, you know, Ignation Prayer is, among other things, a way of encountering God through your imagination and letting God encounter you. And through that, and sort of finding God in all things, trying to come to know God as He is in your prayer and as God is, as she is as well in your daily life.
Now, when I'm assuming the subtitle is Spirituality for Real Life.
Right.
You seem to be very conscious of the fact that these are things that a lot of people maybe aren't aware of.
Yes.
This is a revelation to a lot of people, Catholics especially. Maybe.
I think so. I mean, Catholics and Christians more broadly, and the book's also written for seekers. I think that the notion of prayer and God communicating with the person, as St. Ignatius, the founder of the Jesuits, said, the Creator dealing directly with the creature, you know, is shocking for people. Because most people think that God is kind of, you know, like the watchmaker. I mean, he winds the watch and he lets it go, but he's sort of, kind of like this sort of benign presence who sort of watches over us. I was comparing it in a recent article to that television show, Undercover Boss.
Right.
So the boss, basically, it's a reality show where they have bosses of like White Castle. The boss comes and, you know, works in the White Castle and flips burgers, and at the end it's revealed that he's the president of White Castle. And I always think that's a great image of God, because people think that, you know, that God is somewhere off, like as the CEO, and he sort of kind of cares what happens on the ground level, but he would never come down and kind of meet with us, which is a good sort of image of Jesus. You know, Jesus kind of as the undercover boss. But so how is it that, you know, we've gotten to this point where we think that God is so distant that he doesn't want to interact with us in our daily lives? And so that's what I'm trying to talk about in the book. How do you sort of begin to welcome God into your life in that way? And how do you allow God to welcome you into God's life? And
you talk about, I love in the image you talk about, and we've talked about this before as well, but initially as a child, I love the image that as a child, God was problem solver.
The great problem solver,
yeah. And your image of God must grow up. It's something we talk about at Bustalo a lot, but can you talk a little bit about how your own sort of image of God kind of grew up?
Yeah, well, I mean, like most of us when we're young, and even now, I mean, I fractured my wrist the other day. Let me tell you, I have been praying, you know, please, please do this, do this, do this, do this. You know, all of us approach God with petitionary prayers. It's natural. I mean, you cannot be in front of the transcendent mystery of God and not sort of feel your own limitations and not sort of want things. That makes sense. But it can't just stop there. It can't just be about asking for things. And if you compare it to a personal relationship, it would be as if all I did was ask for things from my friends, like, or all I did was complain, you know, something like, or all I did was talk at them, rather than having a more complex and adult relationship where you imagine God, where you listen to God in your daily life and in your prayer, where you're comfortable with silence, where you're honest. So all the things you can say about a healthy relationship, you can say about your relationship with God. So in other words, it's okay to sort of talk to God and talk at God, but sometimes you have to talk with God and listen to God and be with God. So those are some different stages I talk about in the book.